Holler if you hear me, and welcome to tonight's edition of Art Uncensored. We are here and together to continue on with doing the Capcom renderings of the Marvel superheroes out there, as in specifically the classic Capcom game Marvel Superheroes, which was the introduction of that universe of heroes to the world of Capcom fighting. Really the one I say I actually have the most affection for compared to the others. Yeah, Street Fighter 2, I played a lot of that, except that was on the actually original arcade cabinet in this one place I lived in that had the Street Fighter 2 cabinet right there, along with Marvel vs. Capcom and its sequels and Street Fighter vs. X-Men and all that. But it was beginning there with the likes of our friends in the Marvel superheroes category, which also means it's a fighting game that was actually also an adaptation of a major comic storyline. Yes, the Infinity Gauntlet technically got its first adaptation in the form of the Marvel superheroes game, where you go and you fight, and it's all about collecting the different Infinity Stones, and the final boss is Thanos. And that was my first glimpse of Thanos, and I mentioned Captain America, but also our friend right here tonight, the Juggernaut. Oh yes, why? Because he's the Juggernaut bitch. And here's the color preview of him we did. Yes, this one is the first time in a few weeks where we had, actually this is all done with my Copics to color them in. Gave you a nice little preview of what it is we are doing tonight with the Juggernaut, even though that was a completely terrible thing done by that awful third X-Men movie. Now, most people that do know the character, they immediately think of Vinnie Jones in X-Men The Last Stand shouting out, "The Juggernaut, bitch!" Which nowadays would get him canceled for misgendering Ellen Page. But then again, that really won't happen because that would actually be built on the knowledge that anybody gives a shit about Ellen Page. And yeah, no. Hello to Braden in the chat right there. Nice to see you come around. We've also got other people pouring on in. Let's see them go in there. Yes, this was a stream where I will be putting up a poll, Risa, like I tried to put up with the stream earlier today. And also, I was thinking about I also finished today Batman 3 Jokers, which was a comic that was a few years ago, but it was one of those few things that DC has done. As much as DC really deserves the credit for being the first of the major two publishers in comics to really start hammering in the race swapping and gay washing of superheroes and all that after Infinite Crisis. They also are the one that, unlike Marvel, has been doing at least one or two like major comics that actually are real sellers based off of they've got top talent that actually goes and makes top level comics with the established characters. And Batman 3 Jokers was one of them a few years ago. This year, the DC's equivalent of that was not Jim Valentino, Mark Silvestri. Mark Silvestri's return to actually drawing into comic books with the Batman Joker comic right there, which looked cool. And I mean, because it's Mark Silvestri, I would have been interested in getting it, but I was not able to get to a comic store. And then there was the new Spawn Batman crossover, which I received as a gift. I was sent the hardcover collection of all three Spawn Batman crossovers, the two done in the 90s, and now this most recent one with Tom McFarlane and Greg Capullo working together. And I would say, actually, the newest one is the one I like the most. The second one was good, and that's more based on the story, because Chuck Dixon being the writer on that is terrific. And yes, having Klaus Janson work with him was also great. Janson was one of those artists that's always been not misunderstood, but underappreciated kind of talent, because most of what he's known for is having been an inker in the 80s, inking Frank Miller. But the actual comics he draws himself, where he's really the artist on there, is really underappreciated and should be looked into. He was the original artist, actually, on the first monthly Punisher comic. About the first few issues of that, he was the cover artist and even actually did the coloring, too. And if you were able to get that initial run of the monthly Punisher titles from the Marvel Epic Collection, the first Punisher Epic Collection called Circle of Blood, which reprints the original miniseries that was the first Punisher solo title, sold so well that then that's what led to the monthly title happening. Well, that 5-issue series, we all know that was Mike Zeck drawing, but then initially in those early issues of the monthly Punisher, it was Mr. Klaus Janson. And yeah, that comes highly recommended, especially because he's one of those few comic artists in the American mainstream that also has done coloring work. And yeah, you look at those last few issues of the Millar Daredevil, Millar wasn't even drawing like the pages loosely anymore. He was just doing page layouts, and all the actual interior art was Klaus Janson, even to the point of doing the coloring. Like the big next to last issue of the Resurrection of Elektra. Well, yeah, you see there's the artist and colorist Klaus Janson, which is a very very nice thing to see. But yeah, he deserves better than always being under Frank Miller's shadow. But that's just the way that the cookie crumbles in Hollywood. It's Hollywood-like, I would say, in the comic book business, of how there's certain people that you think would be bigger names, but they don't become those bigger names, and that's sad. But those artists and writers that do become big names and actually are making the work you want to see and that build up, appreciate them. Like with DC, when they do something like Batman 3 Jokers, or the Joker's Wild Batman Joker thing with Silvestri, or the new Spawn Batman crossover. Although 1 or 2 titles a month that people actually will buy from DC does not a healthy industry make. Although now you know that something bad is going on with how much of the social justice crap is destroying the comic business, where now even retailers are making statements against all this crap and how they can't sell it. There's this one comic shop, I don't know where it is, but I do know the guy who runs the store has a YouTube channel. He's saying the problem with these modern writers is that they don't want to write these characters. They just want to write about themselves. Like, oh, how would I be as Steve Rogers? We don't care about you. We don't care how you would be as Steve Rogers. We want to read about Steve Rogers. No, the people actually buy and read these, they grew up with Steve Rogers. They know Spider-Man. They know Miles Morales. They want to read about those. They don't want to read about you. Go ahead, and if you are so obsessed with how you would be, well, then write a comic about yourself, and nobody will buy it. Which is the kind of harsh truths that these idiots like Matt Casaggio and Vita Ala have never heard, because they didn't grow up. Either they grew up with no father, or they grew up with completely complicit, shitty, permissive parenting of the modern age, where everything that the child does is so important and special, and you never discipline them or never tell them they're wrong about anything. And yeah, no wonder that crap goes on. So now, well, they're going to have to deal with that. And because of those Gail Simone, Kelly Sue DeConnick types, the truth hurts, and they never want to take their own medicine or get a dose of their own medicine. For these people who it's always those kind of people that want to obsessively lecture everybody, that then when you gave them a countervailing opinion, they then mentally fucking buckle and fall to the ground screaming. But then again, yeah. It's also interesting how a few years ago, when you had people saying that you're alienating the actual customers, there were some asswipes that were in the whisper networks of the modern comic business that were trying to say, we're not selling comics to people, we're selling comics to the retailers. Well, now even the retailers are now performing a mutiny on your bullshit. So yeah, try going up against that one, you freaking asswipes. And I see we've got Torch C in the chat. That's nice to see. Yeah, not even pretend Hollywood scripts. They're like glorified pitches, like a treatment. It's a glorified treatment for some Netflix deal or whatever. And the sad thing is, one of the still working and still prosperous writers in comics, Mark Millar, pretty much has done nothing but glorified pitches for movies or like streaming shows as his comic books, and still they actually sell, unlike theirs. So he's doing what they're doing, but he's actually doing it successfully, both between making comics that people actually buy and making comics that actually do get production deals, like Kick-Ass or Kingsman. And yeah, a lot of them get production deals, but those that actually get made, like Kick-Ass and Kingsman. And then there was the Jupiter's Legacy that got made into a show, I believe, on Netflix. So yeah, just from those projects alone, and the idea that there even was the development of a screenplay for his comic Nemesis, which I've been interested in because that's Millar working with Steve McNiven, and Steve McNiven's a terrific artist. I have been interested in looking at that one, but yeah, I've never been able to get around to like the ones of Mark Millar's work I have read were Wanted, Kick-Ass, the first Kick-Ass, the Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass 3, and the first Kingsman comic. That's why I was really excited to see. Well, that comic was actually called The Secret Service, but then when the movie came out, it was called Kingsman: The Secret Service, and there was a lot of details, but differences. There was a lot of differences in the story of the comic to the film, although all the things that the director Matthew Vaughn did improved the movie, which is pretty much it's almost like a throwback to like comic book movies from the 90s that were adapted from things that weren't Batman or Superman, and they basically took the general germ of the idea and improve on it and make it work better. Like with The Mask, or basically the title, the look of the character, and the one line like elevator pitch of this dweeb named Stanley Ipkiss, who finds this mask that gives him these like big cartoon powers. And that's basically the only difference, the only similarity. Everything else is from then on in the original comic. It's all about Stanley Ipkiss becoming a violent psychopath who starts slaughtering people in like a Freddy Krueger-ish kind of way, where he's making zany, cartoon, elaborate slapstick out of gunning people down, gunning down cops and setting them on fire at the same time, or going back to the auto body shop that was ripping them off and slaughtering them. Or the subsequent comics they made where then the mask gets into the hands of a cop who starts using it to get violent retribution on criminals he's never been able to sentence or put down permanently, including one scene that actually was recreated in the movie of him cornering a couple criminals making balloon animals, and then the last balloon animal he makes is into a real Tommy gun and he guns them all down, while in the Mask movie he just like shoots at them and they all run away in fear. Which, that whole thing in the Mask movie with those bikers he plays with, he messes around with the balloon animals, was sort of like it was like a payoff without having the setup. There was a deleted scene that was featured in a couple of TV spots, but not ever shown on the DVD or even like the original Laserdisc, where between Jim Carrey getting the mask and him coming back to his apartment, he was supposed to be getting mugged by these bikers who steal his watch. And those bikers then, when he first puts the mask on and, he blows out the one guy's car windows with the air horn, and then from there he goes and messes around with the bikers. Well, that was supposed to have been a payoff from when these bikers stole his watch before, but they cut that out. Oh, and another one was Men in Black, which was, most people think of that as like the Ghostbusters of the 90s, but it was actually a comic book movie. In the early days of Malibu Comics, when they were still like a weird underground black and white thing before their expansion from buying up other comic distributors and comic book stores, that one of the things they did was Men in Black. Originally, it's a black and white comic where it was all about that secret government operation, and also it dealt with the supernatural instead of just dealing with having aliens come to Earth and live in disguise. And yes, it was a direct government operation, while Men in Black, the movie, they changed it out just being all about aliens and all about monitoring the extraterrestrial activity on Earth and all that, and how they're not involved with any government, and they fund all this. They fund everything independently because they're a private organization, all with patenting confiscated alien technology, or as they say, we own the patents on a few pieces of technology we confiscated from out-of-state visitors. Microwave ovens, liposuctions, Velcro. That little gag right there about them, of course, like what, humanity couldn't figure out how to make Velcro or microwaves? Well, maybe, or the little gag with the weird little dangerous energy ball that apparently caused the famous '77 New York blackout. Which, speaking of comics, we know there's this weird symbiotic relationship between comics and movies. Even before the big MCU boom, there was stuff like The Mask or Barbed Wire, or a Tank Girl or Judge Dredd that all got made into movies, like big ones. Like, if anything, before Kick-Ass came out and the movie was finished, and the movie was actually released in 2010 when issue 1 of Kick-Ass was released in on the shelves in 2008. But the quickest time turnaround from first appearance on the comic book to the movie coming out was Barbed Wire, which was part of Dark Horse's Comics Greatest World imprint they started in '93, and then '96 was when the Barbed Wire movie came out. And I remember vividly being my father allowing me to watch the movie on, I remember, VHS. And that was one where there was that. And then also was the year that Striptease came out, although that was more of like a wacky comedy really than anything else. But I also remember, I think that's probably why my memories might be incorrect about the first boobs I ever saw in a movie was Leprechaun 2. I'm pretty sure it actually may have been Barbed Wire earlier, and that was on VHS, and my father let us see that. But symbiosis also is taking movie properties and making comics out of them. Anything from like long-term slasher franchises, all the major slasher franchises have had comics made of them, from Freddy to Jason to even Pinhead. I would say most of the Hellraiser sequels are pretty mediocre, but a lot of the Hellraiser comics are a lot more creative and interesting. Over the years, whether they were done by Marvel or Marvel through their Epic imprint, or being done, I believe, by Boom Studios or other publishers in between. Yeah, check them out. Or also, of all things, Die Hard had some comics that they made, and Howard Chaykin, he's worked in comics for decades. He's also done a lot of stuff where he's one of those comic creators who's a writer artist who's also done a lot of work just as a writer that also gets prominent billing, because just his name alone as a writer means, all right, we can get some bucks off of putting his name on something. And one of those things he did, I believe it was for Boom Studios, was Die Hard Year One. And linking it all back to Men in Black, Die Hard Year One is all about, the first year of Bruce Willis's character on the job as an NYPD officer, and his first day in the NYPD is the day of the '77 New York blackout that supposedly that weird little energy super ball from space in Men in Black caused. Where, go look up some old news footage of that. If you can find it on YouTube, you can find footage of that. And if you think all that footage in the '90s of the Black Friday riots going on over Tickle Me Elmo and shit, and it was big. Try looking at New York, what it was like. New York was already a violent cesspool in the 70s, but then any resemblance to civilization completely disappeared for those days when there was the blackout in 77. It was just, although a lot of people probably joke like, what's the difference? Like, welcome back, Kotter. I rewatched an episode of it today because it was a Christmas episode for like the last year when the title character was not appearing in most of the season because he was out over a contract dispute and doing stand-up tours, and there was something wrong with his contract where he wanted a raise or something like that, and also time for him to go do stand-up touring, and they wouldn't do that. So most of the time he's off screen, and it's his wife who's there in his place. And then also there, and at that same time, John Travolta, the breakout character, decided he wanted to step away from being a regular on the show, so they only had him guest star in a couple episodes, and one of them is all a Christmas episode about this big expensive new overcoat he gets himself, then gets stolen by some kids, and there he is in his new apartment all alone, and he has a Christmas tree up, but he decides, oh yeah, you need a snow job. So he takes pancake powder and covers the tree in it. And then later on, when he's trying to decorate it, he's all sad about his coke getting stolen. He makes spaghetti, but he wants to throw it away. He says, oh no, don't throw it away. He tries to feed it to some pigeons, but he's too stupid to figure out it's New York in December. All those pigeons would have migrated south for the winter. So then he takes the spaghetti and starts using it as Christmas tree ornaments. Yeah, that little thing. Well, and then watch the rest of that show and how rundown Brooklyn was, even especially at that time. I bet you probably there were maybe some references to the blackout, like that were done afterwards. And yeah, it's like, what's the difference? It's like the Rodney King riots and what it was like living in Compton. Oh, what, a few more dangerous, bombed out, smashed out windows and buildings and shit. Yeah, well, I see we got somebody there, but yeah, we got them. And yeah, the blackout, and actually, my father would know from personal experience because back in 77, the New York blackout happened simultaneously with a taxi strike. So maybe that's why it was probably a good thing that the show Taxi didn't premiere till 79. Because, yeah, imagine them trying to have if they like did the pilot and it was 77, yeah, that big taxi strike in New York City, all about a taxi stand and their lives in New York probably would have looked a little weird, and they probably would have wound up canceling it really quickly. So there's that to look forward to. Money talked. Cash is always king, says Christopher. And the gypsy cabs see your cash and they stop immediately, said my father, right there in the middle of that blackout, just waving the money around as well. You're there on business and you have the cash. Oh, yes, there you go. That's why I would visit Manhattan, but it would strictly be on a business situation of like the New York Comic-Con, which is one of the big ones that always happens in the fall. I mean, but in general, just even visiting New York is like a massive financial investment. Like you would need to take out like a massive bank loan that usually be for like opening like a brick and mortar business. You'd probably have to put it towards just to even visit Manhattan. Okay, there's the money you would need to just get the plane ticket there and then the hotel there and then the ticket for the convention floor and all that. Hello to Kim Ryan in the chat. Chat, it's the mobile. I'm having glitches. Well, Kim, I did have to go and start the stream over like seconds into it. Suddenly there was, you cannot perform this stream at this time. It was like a big screen. It was like the whole screen on my computer like blacked out like that. But I know I'll be getting a new computer, a new laptop one way or another for Christmas this year. So these will be things that'll be of the past or whatever. And yeah, I would say look at that, if only for the idea of like the setting, and because Howard Chaykin is one of those comics creators where above and beyond the general Call of Duty of just being a writer, even on something like that's all about the name recognition of Die Hard Year One, I would say check that out because, well, it's Howard Chaykin doing it and him, working above the Call of Duty as a writer with the Die Hard property. Yeah, it'd be something. But Kim, it's nice to see you back here. And another thing I mentioned about finishing Batman 3 Jokers. Yeah, there was like a backlog of these comics that I wanted to either read or reread. And there was that. There was Savage Wolverine, that great comic that Frank Cho wrote and drew. And another is this trade that was sent in a whole big package of Superman trades I got. And this one, yes, they did this in the late 90s. Well, throughout the 90s, there were successful comic books being made of already established Marvel and DC characters, But when they all got hit cartoon shows, then there was the double dipping business of the comic publishers doing a comic that was an adaptation of the cartoon show. So in the 90s, when Marvel had like 5 monthly X-Men books, and that's not counting the solo books for Wolverine or Rogue or whatever, they also had the X-Men Adventures, which was a comic based off of the continuity of the X-Men cartoon. And then there was the Batman Adventures for Batman the Animated Series. And also there was the Mask Adventures done by Dark Horse when the Mask got a cartoon show. And there was Superman Adventures based off of the success of the Superman cartoon on Kids WB, which if we flip inside, I'll show you the character, the cover right there. This trade collects issues 11 to 16, as well as Superman Adventures Annual, the #1, and Superman Adventures Special #1. And there you see up in the corner, just like the series on Kids WB, which was around that. My introduction to Superman was the show, the live action show with Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher. But then after that, it was then when that show ended that the cartoon premiered, and I was all over that. I remember 1 year for my birthday, my father's girlfriend got me that epic long box of the Superman Adventures toys, where it was all the entire major cast of characters and villains from the Superman cartoon, all in one long box. There was Superman, there was, of course, Lois Lane, even Perry White and Jimmy Olsen were in there, and there was also Metallo and Brainiac, and I believe Darkseid as well. But yeah, all of them were in there. All of them were great. And I even remember going to Subway because Subway had Superman cartoon toys. And one of those toys we had was my introduction to the Flash. Because they had the Flash appear on that one episode where it's all about Superman and the Flash having the foot race. That was funny. And they also made a Flash toy out of that. That was great. Hello to Don Power Rangers showing up early here. Well, yeah, I got into an issue of this. But remember, this is based on the continuity of the show. And another interesting about Superman Adventures, initially the writer was Scott McCloud, the guy who did that comic Zot, and famously also did the Understanding comics, that book, Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art. And then eventually Scott McCloud left and he was replaced by a young Mark Millar. This was in the 90s when Mark Millar, pretty much all of his comic output as a writer in America was exclusively stuff that he was writing for DC, whether it was like fill-in issues and stuff, or if it was something like that. When he co-created that character Aztec with Grant Morrison, when they had Mark Millar do like a fill-in story on the JLA annual, and then they had an issue of JLA that was all about this Aztec character that Morrison and Millar co-created, and then they spun him off into a separate comic of Aztec that didn't really stick, that was written by Millar mostly. Is throughout the 90s, Mark Millar's career was like working at DC, and he got it all from being like the Rob Schneider to Grant Morrison's Adam Sandler. Like initially when Millar was trying to get into the business, he like wrote for a fanzine, and when he was a teenager, he interviewed Grant Morrison for a fanzine, and then from there they wound up hitting it off and really talking on the phone a lot. And through Morrison's connections, Millar got his start in the business, working in like UK publishers. They co-created something called Big Dave for 2000 AD. And then from there, there was the first real long like monthly run that Mark Millar had in America was a run on Swamp Thing. He was the last writer on the second Swamp Thing title, like the Swamp Thing title that really made the character vital because of the great Alan Moore run. Well, then after that, the comic kept on going. Then in its last 4 years before they ended it and then rebranded it and relaunched it into the Vertigo imprint, was written by Mark Millar. Although initially Grant Morrison wrote in his book Super Gods that the DC editors wanted him to take over writing Swamp Thing. He said no. A counter proposal was, I'll co-write it for the first 4. I'll co-write 4 issues with this friend of mine, Mark Millar. Then after that, you got to go and hire him for the rest of the comic. And yeah, that's what it did. They had Morrison and Millar co-writing. And then from then on, Millar kept on being the credited writer, even though Morrison claims to have kept giving him advice on the story advice and even giving him exact captions and dialogue to put into the comic, which he dutifully applied. And then the rest of the 90s work that Millar did in America for American publishers was always essentially some collaboration with Morrison, or was something where there was an initial thing they did with him and Morrison together. Then it became all by himself with Millar, like I said, with Aztec appearing in JLA. And then Aztec got his own comic that was written all by Millar. including that great run that Morrison and Millar did of The Flash, where famously Mark Waid really made his name writing The Flash throughout the 90s and really making Wally West his own character and really making Wally West, I'd say, better than Barry Allen. And then, like 7 straight years of writing that, Waid took a break, and the year he stopped writing The Flash in the 90s was the year that you had Waid do writing Kingdom Come and other stuff. And he also wrote Captain America for a while for Marvel. He took over writing Captain America from Mark Grunwald in like the last year or so before they canceled it, and then did that Heroes Reborn relaunch with Rob Liefeld. But then when that Heroes Reborn got canceled, they rehired Mark Waid to go back to writing Captain America. But during that year of Waid not writing The Flash, it was Morrison and Millar, and they were working together for the first 9 issues of that 13-issue run they did. And then the last 4 issues were all written by Millar all by himself, where Millar introduced the Black Flash, which was then a new addition to the big overall like canon and cosmos mythos of The Flash that then has been applied ever since, including Jeff Johns when he wrote The Flash Rebirth. But that's one example. Even there was a thing that Millar did for Marvel in the 90s. It was a miniseries called The Skrull Kill Krew, which was Morrison and Millar working together. It's been reprinted since then. I don't think it's still in print, but you can find the trade on eBay or whatever, or on Amazon. And I believe that the story of the Skrull Kill Krew was inspired by a combination of things. There was the original Skrull story, their first appearance in issue 3 of Fantastic Four, where they get hypnotized into taking the shape, because the Skrulls are shapeshifters. The Mr. Fantastic hypnotizes them into taking the form of cows permanently. And they took that story of what happened to the original Skrulls, then issue of FF, and cross-pollinated that with a famous story that happened in the UK in the 90s of a tainted meat crisis that happened in the UK. Of there was some tainted meat from some cows got like ill or sick in some way, and then their bodies were harvested by some beef company in the UK, and that led to some tainted meat that led to like a big scare that was kind of like mad cow disease for the UK in like the mid-90s. And they took that tainted meat idea and cross-pollinated it with, well, what if one of the cows that got tricked into shape-shifting into a Skrull that became a cow at the end of the issue wound up being harvested for beef, and then the Skrull beef wound up like mutating people into becoming Skrull human hybrids, and thus the Skrull Kill Krew was born. I've heard of that comic. I know about the backstory of it, but yeah, that's it would be interesting to read. And then from there was Mark Millar taking over writing Superman Adventures for like a brief time, because famously Millar was working at DC in the late 90s along with Grant Morrison and Tom Peyer and I believe Mark Waid to try and write to do like a whole new proposal where all of them would work together to start writing one of the 4 monthly Superman comics and completely reinvent him for the new millennium. And this big proposal they did wound up being rejected. And well, Mark Millar did some writing on some early 2000s mainline Superman issues, mostly doing dialogue. Like I have 2 of the 3 trades that DC has published for the early 2000s Superman City of Tomorrow, that kick-ass run where on the comic that was just called Superman, they had Jeff Loeb writing with Ed McGuinness as the artist. And that stuff's great. The other monthly titles at the time also did great work. You had Doug Mankey as one of the artists on there. The one where they would have Superman and S.H.I.E.L.D. working together a lot. And well, here's Clark Kent, You're a Nobody. This issue written by Mark Millar. And yes, Mark Millar, the same gleefully vulgar, violent writer behind stuff like Kick-Ass and Wanted and The Ultimates, did the children's cartoon version of Superman. But that's because as much of like the edgy kind of writer he is, when it comes to Superman and when it comes to the classic superheroes, he loves all the classic superhero canon. And do you know how much of a Superman lover is he? Mark Millar owns one of the capes worn on camera by Christopher Reeve in the first Superman movie. When he did that interview for the Critical Drinker on his like After Hours YouTube channel, in the middle of the interview, he went and showed and pulled up his cape. I believe he showed up for the camera the prop cape that he bought from the set of the first Superman movie, or he showed a picture he took on his social media of him holding up in this one room his prop cape of the superheroes. But what have we got here? Now we've got Daily Dysfunction in the chat. Mighty Magic. Hello to Mighty Magic. We've got Vanessa V there. And no, there's no commercials. Oh no, wait. I saw, that thing that YouTube started doing where they force ads into streams. But if but they have like a little countdown clock where you can click on to skip the ad. I missed that. Yeah, it's like there's like every 15 minutes or something when you're live, there's like an ad roll that will go if you don't click skip ad. I screwed that up. But yeah, look that up. I know I've got some British fans out there. I know Abe isn't in the stream right now, but he would be old enough to remember the whole tainted meat crisis in the UK. Like when I mentioned the whole the controversy over that TV special Ghost Watch that led to like it being blamed for an autistic teenager taking his own life. Or I think maybe also he brings up the famous video nasties crisis that happened in the UK in the 80s. That's a thing. I remember first hearing about that from Nerdrotic. If I'm talking about the announcement that YouTube now is going to have like mid-roll ads during streams, unless you go and like click them to skip. So yeah, I was away from the screen on that tank. But now that we've got that in there, let's all show you what it is we'll be drawing. Here is the preliminary color version of Juggernaut. And yes, this one is the first time in a while where I had all the proper Copic markers in which to color this with, instead of having to like spot weld different types of media and to make them together, and it doesn't look as good. All right. And we got Braden in the chat. Well, yes, the 20 for no commercials. That's a reminder. If you like this or you want to support the channel, don't forget to drop in your super chats or become channel members today, because I have a goal. I have a basic goal of trying to get $20 a day of channel revenue. Just basic $20 a day channel revenue. And that's well, we all know how the algorithm is when it comes to views, and also about how squirrely or oscillating the ad revenue rates are between shorts, which are like literally pennies on the dollar. Like I think the revenues for 1,000 views per shorts is like 10 cents right now. It's like 10 to 15 cents for you get 15 cents of ad revenue per 1,000 views of shorts. There's like $1 and change for 1,000 views and for uploads. And for stream, if you get 1,000 views per a stream, you get like 19 and change. So that's why, yes, the fan funding is the real help. So make sure you drop in them super chats or you become channel members, because the channel memberships start at $2.99, and just about half a dozen of those already pushes me up there close to $2.99. You just round it up to 3. So let's see, you get $2.99 at 3, and then 6 of there. Just 6 of those just makes me a few dollars shy of the $20 revenue right there. Yes, tonight we are doing the Juggernaut because, well, he was prominently featured in Marvel superheroes, and I've been on the run of doing the Capcom Marvel superheroes characters. You saw Wolverine and Thanos and all that, and don't worry about Spider-Man, but remember, with him, we are saving the best for last, and I'm going to try and draw him in his fighting pose. Although now retroactively, knowing about the Punisher and being such a fan of him, I wish that there would have been the Punisher in the game, because then his special weapon or special move would have just been to shoot you. Like with Spider-Man shooting his webs, or with Captain America with his shield slash, Wolverine with his claws. And then you have the other characters. Well, I know that there was Psylocke with her side knife and all that. Hello to Sir Ubisoft in the chat. That's nice to see that. But now that we're in here and I showed you all of that, remember this as we get into the stream tonight. Yeah. I made a joke earlier. I was wondering if I should go and try to do that for real. I saw that one Christmas episode of Welcome Back, Kotter, but now should I go and decorate my tree with spaghetti? Maybe. Should I go to Kroger tomorrow, get like a basic package of spaghetti? You can get like the generic brand they have there for like 99 cents. Get that, bale it, and then put it all over the tree. I don't know about that. Maybe you should do it, but it's like I got Barbarino in my head, and when Barbarino's talking, it's like you can't ignore Barbarino. Yeah. And since Vanessa's in the chat now, we know she's the resident New Yorker. I wonder if she has like any memories, or has like any family members who have memories of that notorious New York blackout in '77 that I was mentioning earlier. As well, I don't think Vanessa is old enough to have been to remember any of that, but at the very least, she would have had family that would have been around in the city when that was going down. Like I mentioned, my father was there on business, and there was that blackout going on, and there was a cabbie strike.
But then again, yeah, if you're walking around those gypsy cabs and you just hold out your hand and you got the cash, they'll pull over no matter what. All right. And actually, Vanessa does corroborate that. She says, yes, my mother said it was the worst, hottest nightmare ever for them between, well, New York's, yeah, they're a major city. They get boiling hot like any other major city during the summer. But then that blackout also happened during the summer. So all your air conditioning is gone. And now there's crime running amok and looting and violence and all that because there's no power, no police and all of that. And then on top of that, there's a taxi strike. So I could just imagine like people like Bosnian refugees from 1993 could have gone back in time, gone across the Atlantic to Manhattan 77 and say, I'm going back to Sarajevo. That's a little thing. And yeah, my father was there in the city at the Regency Hotel. That's that little, yeah, that hotel. That's where he was during and on Park Avenue, actually, if you want to know. But yeah, remember, you're anytime in a major crisis of power and cabbie strikes and all that, it's still, yeah, cash is king. Especially with a lot of people who visited the city in the wake of like the post credit card, debit card world. There probably are a lot of people now who've had those encounters with cabbies saying, oh no, the card machine, oh yeah, it doesn't work. You're going to have to just pay me in cash. Really? Really? Expect me to believe that? Same thing with those who, if they suspect you're a tourist, they immediately start like intentionally taking all the longest routes to rack up the fare because they know, yeah, that they're going to screw with you that way. They know they can get away with it. They don't expect you. As soon as you go and take out a map to explain to them where you want to go, or you like say like a certain location, but you say like the full real name of it. You say like Madison Square Garden instead of the Garden. Oh yeah, we got a tourist. Okay, well now I'm going to intentionally go on these 17 different side streets. So a quick, 15-minute drive or whatever from his hotel to Madison Square Garden becomes like a 45-minute drive. That'll be like $57. And then also you expect a tip. Yeah, kiss my ass. That's where you come in and you do the Vinnie Barbarino voice to fight back at him. What do you think? I'm some kind of tourist? What? No. I was just trying to act more proper. I was trying to see if I could convince somebody that it wasn't from around here. But yeah, apparently I did because you think you can try and screw me over there, you dumb little mook. I see you, little hairy ass. I see your hairy ass all day. No, I know who you are. You the nephew. You're the nephew of Dennis Franz. And I see Dennis Franz, his big, fat, hairy ass, always pulling his pants down, waving at my face every time I come out here in the city. Yeah, you can tell he's a guy, he's all Mr. NYPD Blue. You know why? Because he's got that Chicago accent that sounds like he's making fun of Dan Aykroyd or something. But he's going to treat me like he knows everything about the city because he's got that hairy ass he can scare me into submission with. But that's not going to work on me. You know why? Because I got the sweat hogs with me. Yeah, all I got to do is snap my fingers and Epstein will fuck you up. Epstein, he's in a bit of a mood. He's hearing all these assholes speaking about how they're pro-Hamas, about how they're queers for Palestine, or they're trainee Jews that want Palestine to be prosper and kill the Jews. See, he ain't too happy about that. Between border crisis shit in that half his family and the Hamas shit the other half, he's looking to bust some fucking skulls. So you better stop taking all these side streets, motherfucker, and take about a good $25 off that fare, or else Barbarino ain't gonna be happy. All right. The funny thing also about my father's like joked with people about it, whether visiting New York on business or even like living in California, of people suspecting before he says out loud where he really was from that they think he was a New Yorker because they see like maybe it's because the complexion and the hair color, they might assume he's Italian before is saying out loud what his actual nationality background is. And I'm guessing because of that and also his demeanor. Between that and the demeanor, yeah, unless he explained to you that he was born and raised in Detroit, yeah, they would assume he was like a New Yorker, some kind of like Steven Seagal type. Like, well, for a long time, he would grease back his hair, grease with the complexion and the combed back hair. Yeah, he did sort of look like Steven Seagal for a while, although if he kept his name away from the pie. Vanessa, yeah, you don't have that accent though. I'll say that. No, that kind of the loose leaf, the pizza that's like the loose leaf paper with the tomato on it. Could you picture an Italian guy in New York if he had Parkinson's? That'd be fucking hilarious.
that you would be like biting your tongue trying to not laugh in his face if you saw him in public, just tremoring around, trying to walk around. He's always like, showing off his chest hand, like grabbing his balls and weird waving with his hands when he's trying to talk to you, and he can't look at anybody because he's trying to look at somebody. He's like yelling and gesturing loudly at them. But yeah, that's and also with my father visiting New York City, even New Yorkers always thought he was a New Yorker until they say, "Oh no, I'm from Detroit, bitch." And then, of course, what happens to New Yorkers like that, where if you're not scared of how loud and hairy they are, then it's like when Cartman got punched in that one Christmas special of South Park, and then he just starts crying for a solid minute for mommy. I told you, we're gonna brawl. Hey, the kind of people who think that they're like Detective Sipowicz, and really they're more like Detective Sipowicz's little son. They're like, and I bet you probably even he wanted like, why do they think I'm a New Yorker? And then people like, oh no, doctor, it's the attitude. You would have thought that him not wearing tracksuit, well, probably also because of that, and wearing tracksuits sometimes. The complexion, the combed back hair, and the tracksuits. Yeah, the people would probably you're pretty much leaning into people mistaking you for being Italian New Yorker.
Custom made.
Yeah, that's the tracksuits. That's like that is the Italian man's idea of formal wear. Either that or the tuxedo with the rose on the lapel there, and also the gold rings, like Kingpin, the Spider-Man villain Kingpin. If you went to the opera, or well, no, these days really now, yeah, he was a Spider-Man villain, but really, yeah, the people who are really in the know. He's a Daredevil villain. Yes, he was a Spider-Man villain first, but really ever since Frank Miller's work, no, he's the archenemy of Daredevil, and also by association, he does have encounters with the Punisher. Although the problem with a character like the Punisher, who kills all his enemies, when you have a prominent recurring villain like him that you can't ever kill or kill permanently, you can't have too many stories of a character who kills his enemies like the Punisher encountering Kingpin, or else then you come up with increasingly contrived reasons for how Kingpin is able to live when encountering the Punisher. Same thing with like the one real recurring archenemy of the Punisher, Jigsaw. Like you keep having to pull rabbits out of your ass for either Kingpin or Jigsaw to live. Or you're gonna that's in like the mainline Earth 616 stuff. Well, I haven't read or owned most of the Punisher Max Punisher stuff. I'm wondering maybe there is a storyline there where the Punisher is allowed to permanently put down Jigsaw. Maybe there is. Like I said, that ran the Punisher Max run, at least the good stuff or the stuff you're supposed to read, which is Punisher Max written by Garth Ennis. That's like 60 issues. And I think that one has like no affiliation at all with the mainline Earth 616 Marvel characters, except for Nick Fury. Like Marvel Knights, I know that was meant to be an imprint of Marvel, but that wasn't taking place outside of the mainline continuity. That was just like Earth 616 Marvel comics that were grittier and more violent, like the street level characters like the Punisher and Daredevil, or that Jay Lee drawn a relaunch of the Inhumans that I heard good things about, but wasn't like a big seller. I know it's been reprinted in trades, and Jay Lee's a great artist. I love his stuff. But then there's like Black Panther was also one of the launch titles for the. I heard a lot of people like. It's another thing with there was either the one that was really the big seller was the initial Kevin Smith Joe Quesada relaunch of Daredevil. But then there was the other ones, like they sold decently, but they were more based off of like the people who did read them like them instead of them being big sellers. Like with that version, the relaunch of Black Panther and the relaunch of the Inhumans. But then there was also that Marvel Knights relaunch of the Punisher, which was that weird one where he comes back from the dead as like a supernatural bounty hunter now. And that one lasted like 4 issues and they got rid of it. But then there's the real Marvel Knights Punisher stuff that Garth Ennis was writing. Yeah, that initial Welcome Back Frank 12-issue series. Then there was the monthly title. That's all mainline Earth 616. He encounters Daredevil in that one issue that then inspired that one whole episode of season 2 of the Daredevil show of Punisher luring Daredevil into a trap and then chaining him to that brick wall with the gun in his hand, trying to taunt him into killing him.
And the last issues, like the last 4 issues storyline of the monthly Marvel Knights Punisher Confederacy of Dunces, which is like the biggest main superhero universe work of I hate superheroes that Garth Ennis has ever written. Garth Ennis, his whole thing, his whole persona is being this big, cool, edgy UK writer, even though he's Irish, but still because he has an accent. That means ever since Alan Moore in the comic business, if you have an accent, that means you're some edgy, deconstructive genius just by default. So yeah, the Confederacy of Dunces storyline is all about how it's the Punisher outsmarting, outwitting, and outfighting the Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Wolverine, all 3 of them working together. And then the whole big punchline at the end is this guy, this weird guy that the Punishers had locked in a room and has been feeding him this weird gruel. It turns out it's a combination of like different kinds of hormones and drugs. And it turns out what it is that the Punisher had found Bruce Banner unconscious and suffering from amnesia. So then eventually he gives them all these drugs, but then takes away all these anger suppressant drugs, and then jogs his memory about being the Hulk, so that then, as his final pièce de résistance of humiliating those 3 superheroes, he then sicks the Hulk on Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Daredevil to beat the shit out of all 3 of them. Because the only 2 established superheroes that the like mainline Marvel or DC characters that Garth Ennis likes to write are the Punisher and also Nick Fury. He did some Nick Fury stuff in response to like how well the Nick Fury appearances in Punisher Max were received. And I know he says he doesn't hate all superheroes. I know he says he likes Superman. And if most of it is out of print. The first real like main original creation he ever did at Marvel DC was called Hitman. And yeah, Hitman was actually a character that took place in the mainline DC universe. He's a Tommy Monahan. He's like an Irish-American Gulf War veteran who first appeared as part of this big like company-wide crossover event that DC did in '93 called Bloodlines. And at the time, Garth Ennis was writing The Demon. And yeah, the Demon annual that year had to be the big crossover with the Bloodline storyline. And there is where Mr. Ennis introduced the character Hitman. And then from the Hitman, he introduced him from there. And then because of that being so popular, that's what led to Hitman getting his own monthly book that Garth Ennis wrote for like up to the mid to late 90s. And because the Hitman character is this X-ray vision empowered assassin who works and lives out of the Irish like district, like the Irish town in Gotham City, he takes place in the mainline DC world and even interacts with Batman and Superman and all that, especially Batman because he lives and works out of Gotham. But there were some issues and annuals of Hitman where Superman would show up, and that was like the closest to like in a real comic, in a real story of Garth Ennis telling you how much he respects Superman as a character. And that's pretty much it when it comes to superheroes, established superheroes he likes. And of course, his real personal dislike of, I believe, Wonder Woman and of Captain. I know for sure he dislikes Captain America because he's all it minimizes real veterans of World War II to have this fantasy. Well, that was the purpose of the character, schmuck. And on top of that, his own personal hatred of established characters like Captain America is what then leads to for how so many people want to act like he's the only guy who's ever written the Punisher well, even though Mike Baron spent the first 6 years or so of writing the main monthly Punisher solo book in the 80s and early 90s. And all the things that Garth Ennis got praised for, like he was a genius that no one ever done before, Mike Baron did first. But no, who's going to let a bit of revisionist history from assholes like Rich Johnston online get in the way of the facts? Especially when it comes to assholes like Rich Johnston talking about the Punisher now. And of course, because, Mike Baron is a big evil person because, reasons. Rich Johnson has his reasons. But well, beyond that, yeah, you look at that and was what I said before about it being out of character. Yeah, that's not really the Punisher being in character. If he ever bashes Captain America, that's Garth Ennis's personal prejudices speaking through him. Because in the decades before the Punisher, when he worked in the main Earth 616, before when he just appeared as a Spider-Man villain, then it started appearing in other Spider-Man comics, and then also appearing in Daredevil comics, and even with Captain America. Well, in all those different appearances, and then in his subsequent solo comics, including a great Captain America Punisher miniseries that was written by D.D. Chichester, who was writing the Daredevil in the early 90s and drawn by the great Klaus Janson,
the Punisher always was established as having a respect for Captain America. Yes, even in the time where the Punisher appears as a villain and is fighting Captain America, it shows he respects him because Punisher being a veteran, a Vietnam vet, he respects him as a veteran and as the ultimate patriot, the ultimate soldier for the love of his country. But then Garth Ennis's personal hangups wind up making the Punisher out of character, the character he's supposed to write so well and know so well. But there I go, especially with how much Punisher comics I've read over the years that I was like studying like a lawyer going for his case, going through every single damn book of, whatever law, this or that the case involves. What would I know? It's another one of those situations where you're dealing with people, whether it's like the fake Geek Girl fans that are really just femskulls like Heidi McDonald, or you're dealing with the asswipes and the intelligentsia of comic book sites like CBR that professionally defend the modern industry by default, and how they basically, they're all some variation on the comic book equivalent of the people to whom know so much about medicine because they constantly are looking up WebMD, or the people that you talk to when it comes to like sports, and what you ask them like real nuts and bolts questions about this team or that player, and they have massive gaps in their knowledge and really don't know shit. Yeah, basically that. The kind of people to whom their comic book knowledge comes entirely from, they read a Wikipedia summary. It's like the weird informational inbreeding. Now that big stupid thing that Marvel's done where now how for the longest time the long lost mother of Nightcrawler was Mystique. Well, now they made it, oh no, Mystique is really the long lost father of Nightcrawler. And really the origin happened was that that Mystique gave birth to Nightcrawler from out her butt. Because they want to make Nightcrawler a butt baby. Oh, wow, what a brilliant pun that is from all these weird freaks with the blue hairs and shit. But on top of that, it's also probably their way of wanting to punish Nightcrawler because he's an explicitly Catholic hero. And also their knowledge either comes from Wikipedia summaries or from what they see in movies. So yeah, they probably saw X-Men 2 and saw Alan Cumming portray Nightcrawler as a devout Catholic, and also him and his little personal ritual of all the Hail Marys and how he always never goes anywhere without his rosaries and all the prayers he makes begging for forgiveness for all the sins and crimes he's ever committed to God. And the fact that you have those early X-Men movies made by an openly gay director like Bryan Singer, but he has an explicitly Catholic character, and him seeking the God for penance for all the wrong things he's done is actually portrayed, and it's not portrayed in some kind of, as some way to piss and moan about religion. And also you have a female character like Mystique, who's portrayed not only as being attractive, but being in a heterosexual relationship with the main villain. And on top of that, she's also portrayed by an attractive woman who's wearing very skimpy body paint and latex prosthetics as her wardrobe. And so yeah, no wonder all of that they fucking despise. And of course, no wonder these same modern comic know-nothings that write this perverted shit, like having Clark Kent's father go to a drag show in Smallville, are also now rewriting Mystique's origin that way, because their only understanding is probably either hating the movies for having an attractive woman and Jennifer Lawrence play her, but then on top of that, they read the Wikipedia page that keeps on screeching the phrase canonically bisexual every third sentence, even though that same inbred, complete, blatant lie is being fostered by garbage clickbait articles that are actively lying about the comic book characters' origins and history from idiots like Rich Johnston or Heidi McDonald. But then again, these Wikipedia articles use these clickbait articles as resources, so you're seeing this misinformation being put out by these know-nothing assholes in the woke comic press that then get put in the Wikipedia pages, and then these idiots like Vag Sasaggio look to these pages for other information because they're comic book illiterate. So it's misinformation inbreeding. There might as well be the seal of the royal family with all the inbreeding, the royal families of all the world, from first cousins marrying in this family bloodline of royalty to that family bloodline of royalty. So yeah. That's a little that gives you a little clue as to the stupidity of the modern business. And yeah, you get what you fucking deserve. To quote the famous billion-dollar blockbuster Joker, which all the people in that same culture
of know nothing, blue-haired asswipes or obese asswipes who still have their natural hair color, like Gail Simone, talked about that is a dangerous movie that's going to incite incels to have shooting rampages all over movie theaters. And then not a single shooting rampage happened. It got $1 billion in the box office. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director for Todd Phillips, the guy who got his directing career doing the movie where Tom Green puts a mouse in his mouth, Stifler gets his prostate milked, and then Tom Green throws a giant fucking snake into the throat of Kevin Spacey's first accuser, which doesn't kill him, actually, but I mean, it does lead to him then going and forming a suicide cult, if you saw the movie. So yeah, there you go there. That's a little fun right there. And no wonder the supreme, violent frustration that those video types must have been going through, seeing not only it gets so much success, but then it gets so much mainstream accolades to the point of Oscar nominations after another. And just the fucking and remember, that was the same year of, I believe it was the same year of Captain Marvel. And the fact that, it made officially $1 billion with social media posts showing all the irrefutable evidence of these sold out theaters with actual people in the crowds, as opposed to all those social media posts that those Brie Larson apologists ignore, where, it's people taking pictures of the theater where they're showing Captain Marvel minutes before the lights are about to go down. And this is supposed to be sold out crowd, but there's no seats here. And but remember, and no, if anything, no, the royal family and their inbreeding. Remember, these assholes, these are the type of jackasses that only understand the world because they have no life experience and are all brain dead asswipes. They only understand the world through whatever entertainment or media tells them. So they only understand things through stereotypes, but they want to talk about how progressive they are. And then on top of all of that, when you go and ask them what they think of this place or that place, because they think of the South as just one giant inbred banjo, hootenanny. They deserve to be the ones that get called fucking inbreds, where their sources of quote unquote information, where, they should all, that should be a bigger meme right now, is the clip of Henry Cavill shaming the IGN reporter for saying something patently wrong about the Greek gods. And then he just looks like the guy, Cavill looks in the reporter's face and just tisk. Literally, he goes right into his face. And there's nothing that's not a goddamn thing that guy can do about it, because Cavill, little buddy, old Bal is right. It's not just a matter of him being ripped. It's also a matter of him being good looking, and he has the English accent. So he could get laid anywhere around the world if he sounded like he was from Scarsdale. When it comes to, as I said with Abe before, about the very low standards of attractiveness of people in the UK, well, no wonder if you occasionally come across a British guy in as sports or in entertainment in some way, who's a dude to whom would not need an English accent to get laid, like a Mr. Henry Cavill. That's like a unicorn. That's like Halley's Comet. That's like once every 86 years. Really, how attractive would a Colin Firth or Hugh Grant be to American women if they weren't British? Or even Jude Law? Although I will say, when it came to that remake of Alfie Jude Law starred in, him in his 30s is still a more convincing ladies' man than Michael Caine back in the day. And there's Liza Minnelli talk, because, among my father's true Hollywood stories, one of them included Liza Minnelli, which also includes not just having worked with her, but also an encounter with Andy Warhol. Because, if you go into the front door, you go into the main big living room there of Liza with Aziz home, there's the giant silkscreen portrait of herself that old Mr. Warhol did, because it's just glamorous. It's fabulous because it's a Warhol. And isn't that just lovely? I like it. Yes, it's very, very, very supreme. That's why I'm still a little frustrated that Warhol, if you look back at that, Andy Warhol was one of the big celebrity guests at the original WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden, and yet nowhere have I seen a Warhol portrait of Hulk Hogan. Where? How did that not happen? How was he, at the very least, Vince McMahon didn't go and personally commission a original Warhol of Hulk Hogan? Either that, or I just haven't been looking at the right art books or bibliography, whatever, of Warhol's output to show the portrait he did. That's Yeah, Liza being Hollywood royalty, and my father met her and started working with her through her one of her ex-husbands, old Jack Haley Jr., as in the son of the Tin Man, because that was like a big headline back in the day of the son of Dorothy and the son of the Tin Man marrying. And also, that was the one confirmed straight guy that Liza ever married in her life, because, well, I'm guessing she was going through a phase, so she wanted to experiment with marrying a straight dude. No, it was a phase. Yes, I know that bitch-made Bolshevik Mr. TARDIS was all high and mighty about it's so offensive and harmful to gay people to say about gay sex is only a phase. Shut the fuck up, you sexless fat little dweeb. A douchebag like you could have an English accent, fly all the way over to America, and your ass still wouldn't get laid even with the English accent. How pathetic does that make you? You're like a fatter John Oliver with a douchier hat. Yeah, that when he got all high and mighty about that one fucking line of dialogue from that one episode of that Asylum of the Daleks on Doctor Who a few years back when they first introduced the what was the character's name? Oh yeah, Clara. Yeah, that one. Well, yeah. Sorry, bitch. Yeah. If sexuality is so fluid and doing things like that with all that is a thing, well then sorry, it works the other way, motherfucker. And yeah, it worked with Liza where, yeah, she got married several times. And yeah, one time, oh, well, it must have been a phase when she wanted to marry a straight dude and then a quick divorce, then went back to the gays when it came to her dating life. Oh, like mother, like daughter, considering she was the daughter of Judy Garland, who then became, if anything, she actually usurped her mother when it came to Hollywood success, between her being one of those few people who have the EGOT, is the acronym of Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Unfortunately, the only one I know of off the top of my head that also had that is Whoopi Goldberg. Those are the only two I know of immediately off the top of my head. But yeah, and guess what? The pretty big, and yes, Judy Garland, yeah, big icon. I mean, world renowned. She's known. But really look at, like, if you could do the score sheets, if you did like the cards, like you had the like last season of her career card for Liza Minnelli, and then compare that to her mother and look at their box office clout, look at the awards they won or were nominated for, look at the scale of like shows they did and the attendance records of what they did like on TV specials to then like on Broadway, and then the success of their movie career and what they did on TV. Just side by side, I bet you probably Liza would have more success than her mom. That's not diminishing your mother. It's just a matter of, well, you know, showbiz or not. Well, if you are a real fucking parent, you're there parenting the kid. Well, every parent's aspiration is for the child to go and do better in life than they did. Well, I mean, I'd say in that case, yeah, Judy Garland, warts and all, succeeded as a parent. Yeah. I mean, there is that. Even though also she was the kind of woman who, when her and her daughters were living at a hotel, they were getting evicted from the hotel they were staying at, and she was suicidal trying to jump out the window. She was on the ledge. One of those man on ledge stories you hear about in the news in major cities. Well, yeah, there was probably the world's most famous man on ledge story. It was of Judy Garland right there on the ledge. I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna jump. And although one thing she did hold on to wherever Garland's turmoil in life was, she always kept a pair of the ruby slippers that were screen used in Wizard of Oz, and then Liza inherited them and kept them on a nice big display in the same room with her original Warhol. Okay, so well, that's one of those international movies that everybody knows, like this test where, yeah, if a guy knows Wizard of Oz, that doesn't make him gay. The real test of if a guy knows anything about Judy Garland's filmography other than the Wizard of Oz, yeah, then be suspect. You might have a gay on your hands. And that gag they did in the one Family Guy episode of, you ask a guy what's his favorite Madonna album. If any other answer than I've never bought one, you've got a gay. Well, a variation on that before Madonna would have been, well, if you ask a guy what's his favorite Judy Garland movie and he says anything other than Wizard of Oz, then you've got a gay. Oh, yeah, Sir Ubi-san, I remember that James Corden thing about fat shaming. And yeah, he was a complete pussy, although I will say his clapback at Bill Maher was funny about, we all don't have a sense of superiority that burns 20,000 calories a day. And then, oh yeah, fat shaming. Oh, fat shaming's bad. And then guess what? He becomes a spokesman for Weight Watchers and drops like most of his British Sean Astin looking physique. And speaking of Doctor Who, I wish we were just in a time where all Americans would have known him as that annoying fat guy on those couple of Matt Smith era Doctor Who episodes. Unfortunately, he came over here and then he became America's problem. And I also remember there's a popular comedian in the UK. He's never really permeated American pop culture. He's called Stuart Lee, and he did a stand-up routine I saw where he was mocking James Corden. He says, I heard through somebody that says, oh, he's a fan of my act. Yeah, so James Corden being a fan of my comedy is like a dog listening to classical music. And Vanessa saying, Vanessa says, yes, when I worked for her, referring to Liza, I'm assuming, I saw them clean her Warhol and the glass case of the almost worn out original screen-used ruby slippers. Liza said the other pairs went to siblings, and I think also the one pair that's in the Natural History Museum, or I think it is. Yeah, because the Lorna, the Lorna Loft, the sister of Liza Minnelli, she had another one of the screen-used pair. Because my father, he worked with Liza Minnelli, but also spent some time there over at Lorna Loft's place and worked with her and her husband specifically. Why? Because because my father's manager for a while was Lorna Loft's husband. So yeah, Jake Hooker. Yes, my father. Yes, Jake Hooker, the manager of. He was the husband of Lorna Loft. And well, unlike Liza, maybe that's why Lorna Loft didn't make it as much in Hollywood, because she insisted on marrying straight dudes.
Yeah, but he also co-wrote I Love Rock and Roll.
Vanessa, I think it's the Smithsonian that has that one pair of ruby slippers. I don't think it's that. Yeah, it's the Smithsonian. I lived in DC. I've seen this. I believe. Yeah, there's the Smithsonian in DC. I think it is. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah. And Daily Dysfunction is very much an oddball by saying she's never seen The Wizard of Oz. That's like a wow. That I can see, like, people when it comes to classic American stuff. I can understand people not seeing Casablanca or Citizen Kane, but The Wizard of Oz, that's one of those where, like, yeah, that really makes you an outlier. Like, it's one of those where it's like Star Wars or like Titanic. Yeah, people have seen that. And like, if you've not, then all right, that really makes you like an outsider. But that one Steven Seagal movie I rewatched before it got taken off of Tubi recently, The Glimmer Man, and Keenen Ivory Wayans' character has this thing where his favorite movie is Casablanca. There's even he's had a screening of Casablanca in one of those old revival theaters in LA, and he's crying. And then he goes out of the theater to talk to Steven Seagal, and he got back in. He invites Seagal back in to watch the rest of the movie, and he's like, "No, I've never seen it." And there's a whole scene of like, "What? You've never seen Casablanca?" And Seagal's like, "Yeah, you're asking me if I've never seen Casablanca? No, I haven't." So then he goes back in to watch the rest of it with Wayans, or as his name should be, ladies and gentlemen, Keenen Ivory Wayans. That's the funny thing is it follows the buddy cop formula, and eventually they bond or whatever. But then the weird ending where after they save the day and all that, Wayans has this whole monologue where he's been shot, he's got his arm wounded, he's going into the back of an ambulance on the stretcher there, and he's like, his final lines are to Seagal saying, ever since you became my partner, I've been shot at, I've been fistfights, I've been thrown out windows, all my worldly possessions destroyed, I'm basically homeless. So maybe we shouldn't see each other for a while. I don't know if my microphone picked it up, but yeah, my father says, well, yeah, maybe they shouldn't because Keenen Ivory Wayans had more talent in his baby show than Steven Seagal. Well, most people think of Keenen Ivory Wayans and they'll think of In Living Color, although he also worked as a director. He did some movies he directed. He also starred in the blaxploitation spoof I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, which actually had real blaxploitation stars in it with him, like Richard Roundtree and Jim Brown, or one I used to see on HBO a lot that even fans of the Wayans don't remember really, called A Low Down Dirty Shame, where it's him trying to be an action star but also do comedy. And then, of course, the first couple scary movies, he directed that, and then White Chicks. But before all that, before Living Color really made him a name, he also worked in stand-up, did a lot of stuff in front of and behind the camera, including co-writing and co-producing that great comedy Hollywood Shuffle. Robert Townsend, The Meteor Man, the first movie he co-wrote, directed, co-produced, and starred in, which Ivory Wayans co-wrote and produced with him. Yeah, he worked on that, and the movie about Star 80 about Dorothy Stratton. the scene of they show her because she's going to be a playmate. They give her a place. They put her up in an apartment. They give her a day job at the L.A. Playboy Club back when that was still a thing. And they show her there she is waiting tables at the place. And the comedian they have in the club, that's Keenen Ivory Wayans in his film debut when he still had hair. Sir Ubi-san, no, I have not watched the retarded animal babies. And yeah, Vanessa had the wonderful task of making sure the glass case of the ruby slippers that Liza Minnelli owned remained clean and sealed. That's very nice. Well, that's the thing we've got. The thing about my channel, 6 Foot Soka is right about how this is an education. You are here to be entertained and informed. You know, that's what sets me apart from Nerdrotic or Geeks and Gamers. There's more than just telling you what you already are thinking or hearing about what's the state of pop culture or Hollywood or gaming or whatever. But on top of that, you also learn a thing or two from either my father from his True Hollywood Stories or his medical expertise, or now also you learn a bit about my audience, like Vanessa and her place. There she was, being a part of the clue to make sure that Liza's Warhol and Liza's copy of the Ruby Slippers were immaculate. Yeah, that's something where has Keenen Ivory Wayans becoming? Say what you want about Steven Seagal, but we still know of him. We still know him around there between either all the straight-to-video garbage he did and now the years of him being the cultural, I think, something to do with the Russian government. I think he's the American ambassador to Russia or something like that, or the cultural attaché to Russia. And the weird way he says Putin's name, the Vladimir Putin. It's like the Russian equivalent of one of those Americans that either goes and vacations in Italy, or they do a semester abroad in Italy or France, and then suddenly they start saying or Spain, and they start saying Ibiza, or they start talking in the Italian accent about Florence. No, this is Italy. Or they come back from France and they say croissant, or they spend or London, and then suddenly they're speaking in the English accent and they're calling people tossers or bollocks. But they won't pull on the English accent, but they'll still say those words, but with the American accent. Yeah, those kind of people. That's basically Seagal was being the Russian equivalent of one of those Americans that goes to Spain and suddenly it's Ibiza, or the legatoni, that kind of crap where you just want to smack them. And yeah, trust me, you could smack Seagal these days and get away with it. Yeah, he's not exactly keeping up with his Aikido. The most I've ever seen him move on camera in the last 20 years was that one weird-ass video where he's somewhere, I believe, in Ukraine, and he's dancing. There's that woman doing some traditional Eastern European dance, and then there's Seagal doing the dance along with her, and it's fucking stupid. Yeah, that kind of shit. Say what you want about Van Damme, but at least he maintained his physique. Even when his career was dipping into direct-to-video stuff, he still kept up that former Mr. Belgium body of his, the muscles from Brussels. And yes, as my father brings up, yes, he's this guy to whom his ethnic background has changed over the years. Initially, when he first got big in Hollywood, he was trying to lean into more convincing me he was some kind of Italian-American type, the roles he'd play. He'd have Italian names, or you'd be seeing him go to a Catholic church or whatever. And he would try to give you this intentional, vague overlap between himself and the persona he wanted to have and the roles he was putting into his early movies. And then suddenly he starts acting like he's all American Indian. And I will say On Deadly Ground, yeah, there he is, and his Indian woman's love interest is played by a blatantly Chinese woman, while he looks more Indian than she does. And then suddenly starts acting he's and then he would go between being Indian, and then he'd be Southern. And if it's not something to do with the South or New Orleans, when he was that acting sheriff on that Lawman show, he's doing the black accent when he's talking to black criminals on the show, or if he's doing that blues band, suddenly he's all talking he's all jive talking man. Oh yeah, that's alligator ass. And now, more recently, last 15 years or so, now he's all trying to act like he's always been a Russian, or oh yeah, I'm Russian Mongol. I'm Russian. My father is a Russian Mongol. No, your father was a Russian Jew, and your mom, I believe, was Italian. So the Italian stuff in the earlier films, when he's Nico, his first film Above the Law in Europe and the UK, it was called Nico, or Out for Justice, which I would say is his best movie. He's calling himself Gino, and he's trying to do the New York accent, which sounds like a Saturday Night Live character making fun of the accent.
He sounds like on Family Guy when they would impersonate Italians when the mafia would be involved, that sort of thing. I don't know. Anybody see Richie? Yeah, I'm gonna keep coming back here to somebody. Remember seeing Richie? Tell your brother Mo, cut off his head and piss down his throat. No, yeah, I know this guy. He'll sneak and he'll hide, but he ain't gonna leave broken. No, just give me the arm marked and the shotgun. This is a trophy. This is a trophy. I mean, Razor Fist loves Seagal's movies and loves that one in particular. He also says that's something we agree on. That's his favorite Seagal film. And even he makes fun of Seagal's goofy accent in there. And apparently, if IMDb is to be trusted, the main villain in the movie, the Richie in question, played by the father, Michael Myers' father in the shitty Rob Zombie Halloween remake, that apparently on the set, Seagal told him that he needed to work on his Brooklyn accent for not being convincing enough. And apparently this guy looked him in the face and said, no, Steven, you got to work on yours. And they didn't know that. Yeah. I mean, just watch a trailer for that. And yeah, there's no hiding. That was the first of the many terrible attempts at accents that he would do between that and then now he's trying to act all Russian, or, when he was doing that Lawman show in the South, and he's like, trying to talk like a ghetto man, or the I'm gonna snatch every motherfucking birthday. Well, Day of Dysfunction, we can agree on that. Yeah, she loves the old Seagal movies. I do too. I have his early 90s glory days all on DVD or Blu-ray thanks to a combination of Relentless, who I remember she sent me the Blu-ray for Under Siege. And yeah, Nick sent me the Blu-ray DVD for, I think, I know for sure, I think Out for Justice, and also Marked for Death and Above the Law. But I think Relentless also sent me the Blu-ray for Hard to Kill. I think so. I know. Yeah, Relentless sent me Under Siege, and that Nick sent me Out for Justice and Marked for Death. Marked for Death being the only one of those early of his heyday that you can still watch on Tubi. I'm guessing that's because it's a different rights issue, because that's the one film from his theatrical peak that was not a Warner Brothers release. So I'm guessing all the other ones were part of some package deal that Tubi expired with our friends at the WB. And yeah, there's Vanessa has another story about, Liza said the director had to film the scenes, referring to the film Arthur that Liza did with, that Liza was the love interest in with Dudley Moore. And then they did the remake with Russell Brand, and the love interest replacing Liza Minnelli was played by that doughy bitch that just directed the Barbie movie. Yeah, because when you think woman that can replace the iconic magnetism in all forms of Liza Minnelli, you think of the lady who aged and ate her way out of mumblecore indie dramas, so she married Noah Baumbach to then weasel her way into getting directing jobs, and rely on her husband to get the directing job of doing Barbie, and of course making all about her paranoid, anti-male bullshit, even though she owes her career to men. Yeah, very much. Yeah, and of course, but then again, remember, this is Hollywood. It's who you know and who you blow. And oh yeah, her husband, acclaimed indie director Noah Baumbach, with all his years of credibility as an indie filmmaker and that clout he had in his critical acclaim and his Oscar nominations, probably had something to do with her directing a couple of nothing films, including some boring ass remake of Little Women that everybody forgot about. I mean, trust me, you ask some millennial if they know Little Women and they don't think of the Louisa May Alcott source material, their idea of Little Women on the big screen is the 90s version with Winona Ryder and Kirsten Dunst still. It's not that one that, I don't even think the cast and crew remember being in that one. But maybe if I said it in the Italian, New York kind of accent, truth hurts there, bitch. Why don't you go and invest in something like a helmet, or maybe in a treadmill, lose about a good 20 pounds. Maybe then you want to make a movie like that all about you, or then maybe you can go and star in the movie, but you first would be able to fit in those dresses. You look like you couldn't fit through the frame of a door anymore. Just a little thing right there. No, I do not believe my father's ever met Jerry Stiller. He did watch him on the Ed Sullivan. Oh wait, no, I don't think he has, but no, we just said that he has met Jerry Stiller. He'll come back, and I mentioned before about him encountering Andy Warhol, because there he was with Liza. Well, there's this place in New York called Sardi's, where, because there was my father in Sardi's in New York with Liza, he got to meet Jerry Stiller, and because of the time frame, this definitely would have been those. I met with the wife too. those would have. He actually not. He didn't just meet Jerry Stiller. He also met his wife, because when Jerry Stiller first got famous, it was a comedy act with him and his wife. It was Stiller and Mira, and they would appear a lot on the Ed Sullivan Show and on the Tonight Show. But this is in the 80s, so that was those years between Stiller and Mira, and then when Stiller got the big new wave from being on Seinfeld and then on King of Queens. And of course, how initially he was getting his daughter and son in movies, but then after that, then his son would start putting him in movies he was involved in. Like if you remember Heavyweights, where Ben Stiller is the villain in that, and then of course Stiller and Mira just happened to appear in a scene.
What, you know what his first words to when Liza introduced me?
Yeah, what was that?
He said, "You paisano."
And so even Jerry Stiller mistook my father for being Italian, because he looked him in the face and thought he said, "You're a paisano." No, paisano, no paisano, no paisano. No,
Pull up from Detroit, he said
no.
You adopted?
No paisano, no prosciutto, no gabagool, no snooki. No Russian whores. And then, of course, he explained, no, I'm Eastern European. I'm from Detroit, and my family was from Poland and Ukraine. Oh, what, you were adopted? No. But maybe it was because of the greased back hair that gave him the Steven Seagal look. So they must have. And I'm guessing early on in his career, people thought, oh, wait, he's got to be Italian or something. Or as the Family Guy said, well, you act Asian, you look Indian, and your name is possibly Jewish. What are you? Really fat? And we've got General T in the chat. That's nice to see. And of course, do not forget all about helping out the channel with your super chats or your channel memberships to help me reach my $20 a day revenue goal. Just think about that for a second. And also, don't forget, it's Christmas is coming, and I do have an Amazon wish list. And well, because all of the main Steven Seagal movies that I really like are all, I own them all now. Well, so now those are all off the wish list. So you got that to see. And no, General T, there have not been that many trolls. A few of them have come. They've all been shit hammered. Most of them trying to say, oh, we're going to see you at Great Lakes Comic-Con. Yeah, the people to whom, this channel that's been around for almost a decade, that has 108K subs, they got a Patreon and all this shit. They got all these guests that come on their streams. And yet, why is it that they need a crowdfund to come to the Great Lakes Comic-Con in February? They're literally one state over from me, and they need to crowdfund to come from here to a convention where it's a $10 ticket at the door. Yeah, that sign ain't right there, Big Daddy.
It's about 75 miles from here to Toledo. They need a crowdfund.
It's even more humiliating and embarrassing than when I look at the big name comic artists who work for DC or Marvel for decades, and yet they've got these homes with these nest eggs to all that, and yet they want your money to go and make their comic. In case you're wondering why I respect Eric July so much, Drunken Peasants be damned, because he put his own money he had earned from years of success as a musician and on YouTube to start the company. I don't care what any miserable contrarian loudmouth lout who can't hold the job that's doing manual labor in a right to work state, but then they want to be all arrogant about not ever wanting to ask you for donations or ask you for subscriptions, or the people who just need Dick Masterson to go and launch misinformation, fake, concern trolling, so that some Christian charity group will try and sue him under false information. Now, the DP, they're probably also crowdfunding to buy more pie. This is it. Tell your brother Mo, cut down his head. Although probably my father would be a little bit tickled by the resemblance, at least when it comes to Out for Justice, because there's a scene in there, the big pool hall fight scene, the one guy in the tracksuit with the pool cues, he's stick fighting. That happens to be somebody close to Bruce Lee. That happens to be played by Dan Inosanto, a Filipino martial artist who was one of the few people that Bruce Lee actually really licensed to teach his self-generated martial art, and also was the man who taught Bruce Lee how to use nunchucks. Yeah, and there he is, the biggest appearance in film outside of Bruce Lee's filmography. He's a random guy in a tracksuit that's pool cue fighting with Steven Seagal and loses. Yeah. Surbisan asks, where do you get your ideas for your comics? Well, Pain Machines came from a combination of loving different things from comics, from specific comic book artists to video games to specific kinds of films and even specific kinds of fine art. It came from a combination of loving the fine artwork of painter Francis Bacon, who was a major influence on the production design of films that I loved, like Jacob's Ladder and the early Silent Hill games, the ones that were developed by Team Silent, and also comic books that were done by abstract expressionist artists like Bill Sienkiewicz or Dave McKean, and also David Mack. And wanted to do, and Pain Machines came from those movies, those comics, those artists I mentioned, as well as a love for the film Eraserhead, and how with all of the gentrification of downtown Detroit from all these New Yorkers coming here, there still is a lot of urban decay there and a lot of like industrial decay around parts of the city that reminded me a lot of what I saw in Eraserhead. So it was like seeing Eraserhead in person. And those kind of influences all wound up just coalescing into making Pain Machines and taking 2 years to actually finish it. And Tanya Lady of the Blade came all from one sitting down. The first time I was reading through the Solomon Kane stories by Robert E. Howard. And from there, with my love of European fantasy comics and already knowing about and loving Michael Moorcock's fantasy stories from Elric to Corman and all that, but it was really sitting down and reading the Solomon Kane stories, reading them that then one story after another, that's where Tanya Lady of the Blade came from. And that was after I finally was getting exposure to European science fiction comics, to the bande dessinée, of finally being able to read some volumes of Valerian and Laurelin, that were, the best thing about that terrible Hollywood movie was that finally there were readily available English translations of all the different Valerian volumes, and also the sci-fi comics of Philippe Juillet, another contemporary of Jean Giraud and Jean-Claude Mézières, and loving the Star Trek The Motion Picture in 2001, and all that coalesced into the concept of Intrepids, of a space mission into the heart of the sun. And then the further I developed it, also, I was reminded of the movie The Abyss. So then I also, The Abyss is something where then, remembering that and remembering my love for that movie, there's that. And I actually do have The Abyss on DVD as well. And I see that now The Abyss finally got a restoration in 4K. There's a 4K restoration. There's not only a 4K restoration that's going to be available on like Blu-ray and DVD, but there's also going to be a 4K restoration. The 4K restoration is going to be shown in theaters. Yeah, there's going to be like a theatrical limited release for The Abyss in 4K, and that is one I would love to actually be able to see in the theater. That is one that, I would love to see in the theater. That would be just amazing. And Braden Dykstra, I agree with you. That is very, very misunderstood. That's where me and Red Letter Media, we are, like this. We are eye to eye on that one exactly, about how misunderstood it is. And the awkward maiden voyage that is, it's the other big Trek movie of the original series that people don't really want to talk about, or there's that, and there's Star Trek V. Though those are the two ones of the movies of the original cast that are always like the black sheep of those series. At least until Jar Jar Abrams got his hands on Star Trek, and then every movie became the black sheep, except after the big hype and boom and success of the bombast of the first Abrams Trek film, then we realized, oh wait, that's just dumb action shit. And Star Trek is not a dumb action franchise. It's supposed to be this big, like moral dilemmas and political quagmires and interpersonal character drama that, absolutely positively was never a thing in the glorified Star Wars demo reel that was the Abrams Trek movies. But it was too little too late. Sir Ubisoft, Dan Inosanto, specifically, he taught Bruce Lee nunchucks. That's like that's the big thing. And then they became close together. And then afterwards, there was the funny thing about the footage of Game of Death that Bruce Lee did shoot before he died. There was like the 3 different fight scenes he shot. And out of them, the only one of the actors in that original footage that came back to appear in Game of Death as it was finished and released in theaters in the late 70s was Dan Inosanto. Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lee fights him at the end, but the
the few scenes where you see Kareem and the rest of the new footage for the movie, that's all a stand-in that's like sitting in shadows to cover for how clearly it's not Kareem. And the only one of the guys he fights in that original footage that came for this new one, where suddenly they shoehorn in some footage from other Bruce Lee movies, and even they have the sexy maid from Krew in the movie. It was like her one of the film roles she made before. She was the hot Indian girl playmate at the USO show in Apocalypse Now. Yeah, Dan is still alive. He's still alive, walking around with a cane, but yeah, he can still, defend himself. There's even the Innocento Academy of Martial Arts, which you can look up online. They have their own website. So, I mean, if you want to go there, you want to enlist, you want to, learn a little something, I mentioned the Junri Taekwondo Institute, famous in DC, and also locally famous for the big TV ads they have, and their old catchphrase of "Nobody bothers me." Well, and how Junri even got an interview in an issue of The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Marvel's martial arts black and white comic that did more than just do black and white comic book stories. They also had things like, that they would have those full page ads for like martial arts weapons you could buy, or like different ads for courses. And they also had like print interviews that included Ennis. Here's one. He was born in Stockton, California, and also he's 87. That's well, the famous Jeet Kune Do was Bruce Lee's own martial art. Well, of course, he's one of the few licensed instructors behind that, but also he's a master of Eskrima, which is a Filipino form of martial art. Which it's Filipino. It's his nationality. That was the first one he learned, and then from there he expanded into other ones. If I can show or see, as there's like a list of them online you can find of them. Besides Eskrima, there's also Muay Thai, which that's kickboxing. The original form of kickboxing was established in Thailand, and Thai in kickboxing is Muay Thai. And there's a Jiu-Jitsu, American Kempo, Pencak Silat, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically. And then it's American Kempo and Pencak Silat. Yes, Ruby-san, I saw that a while back, that documentary, A Warrior's Journey, where like the last half hour of the movie is all of the original unedited footage that he shot. Where yes, it's the footage as it was originally being shot of what of Game of Death was supposed to be was Bruce Lee, and he had like a couple of guys with him that were trying to fight their way up this pagoda. And there's the three fight scenes, the three fighters they shot scenes with. That was all Lee had shot, and then he went off to do Enter the Dragon. And then he was planning to restart shooting Game of Death, I believe, in like September, I think it was. But then he died July. I believe it was, he died in July. I can't remember the exact day. He was 32, and it was weeks before Enter the Dragon was going to come out. All right. Well,
the 50th year this summer.
Actually, this summer was the 50th anniversary of Bruce Lee's death and of the release of Enter the Dragon. So I wonder if they did like a big golden anniversary like release for it, like some big new release for it. That would have been interesting to see. But the knife fighting, or what else? Daily Dysfunction remembers Billy Blanks and Taibo. Well, I mentioned before about Steven Seagal, and in the 90s, he did some charity work when he was still like an A-lister, and that included Seagal doing work for the DARE campaign. Remember DARE, the whole anti-drug thing? And there was some like charity campaign that Seagal did for DARE that included Billy Blanks before he got TV famous with Taibo. He was still like a champion martial artist who was like appearing in movies. Like he'd either be like a stunt fighter, or like the biggest starring roles he get would be in some of those straight-to-video things that the Jason Brandt reviews on his channel. And also, supposedly, according to one Jason Brandt video where they reviewed Under Siege 2, and they brought on like a Seagal expert on the video with them, and he talked about the story of how Billy Blanks explained to different people about in like the mid-90s, like after On Deadly Ground, Billy Blanks was secretly hired to get Seagal back in shape because supposedly he had been putting on weight. Because of his divorce from Kelly LeBrock around the time of Under Siege 2 being made, he started putting on weight, and Seagal admitted to wearing a girdle during the production of Under Siege 2. So he was already putting on weight even before he was doing straight-to-video stuff exclusively. Yeah, so there's that. And yeah, look at Billy Blanks, who was a brick shit house for a good portion of his life, especially with the whole Taibo thing took off and all that.
So I could see why, yeah, they'd get like some guy with a martial arts background to get him to drop the weight. Or I rewatched the Cinemassacre rental reviews video of Under Siege, and one of them even talks about how like it looks like during production Seagal gained 20 pounds. And it's like in the beginning of the movie, Seagal looks good, but then there's like a scene of him around the end of him sitting down, and it looks like he's gotten fatter. Which even Roger Ebert pointed out in his rave review of Under Siege. He talks about it even looks like Seagal even put on some weight for the role. Yeah. There's that. Daily Function remembers Billy Blanks because she remembers the movie he had with Hot Rod. Oh yeah, Roddy Piper. I think that's called Immortal Combat with Roddy Piper and Billy Blanks, because finally, together at last, the Hot Scott and Taibo Man. And now Serbasan's asking, you know Ji Han Jae, the Hapkido guy after Inosanto? That's a name I'm not familiar with. And yeah, my father's never met him either. But now from there, I'll give you all a look at what we finished today. Since now we are done, let's get in there. There is my art store link in the chat once again. And you see there's the color Juggernaut, because I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. There's the Juggernaut. And there's the pen and ink Juggernaut and the Juggernaut in color. And whichever one you want, well, remember, just follow the link. Wait, I got to skip one of those ads. Click one of those ads. Clicking off the ads, skipping the ads. But you see right here, this stream, you'll see if either one of these you'd like, just follow the link to my art store, and a $30 donation will get you either one of these. All you have to do then is come back to the stream and say which one of the two you want. Then they will be shipped out first thing tomorrow morning. Then, if you want both of them, donate $50 into my art store, and both of them will be shipped out to you first thing tomorrow morning. And they will be the subject of a new Luke Goes Postal video. Because remember, it's Christmas time, and artwork like this would definitely be something that you all would like to see. I mean, 6 Foot Silka can't go and buy up everything I draw in the streams. I mean, you gotta, some of you else out there gotta go ahead and do it. Especially because, you know, it's Christmas time. He's got a wife and a family, so we're not always going to be seeing him around, and that's understandable. And actually, you know, people that follow the channel like that, to whom they've got lives to lead and all that, that's actually nice to know they've got those kind of jobs, and I'm attracting that kind of audience, as opposed to the kind of people where, yeah, if they're not hearing the streams, it's probably because, you know, geeks and gamers snap their fingers and they're going over there instead. Like pretty much what happened last night, which was completely Baron Munchausen, because, well, you know, the Tuesday night's main event, it's Geeks and Gamers. They need my attention. If not, it will anger them. And thus, it will make Jay laugh and smirk while looking like a smarmy drunk, severely going through toxemia, even harder than always. Although I say, what's the fucking difference? He always looks like he's smarmy and drunk. There. But then, probably not a thing that a lot of people in my audience would like to hear, but then again, you know, I am equal opportunity when it comes to likes or dislikes about people I see online. It make me a miserable contrarian edgelord like Pumafist who just wants to shit on everybody, but then hope we don't notice the cognitive dissonance of how, oh yeah, that guy's a scammer. Yeah, Eric July, he's a bought up bitch. He's a loser. He's just scamming you. Comics Gate's a scam. This guy, oh yeah. Elon Musk is a liar, bitch, whatever. But, you know, I'm still going to vote Trump in 2024, and he's going to fix the economy with 5 mean tweets about Stephen Colbert because he has magic powers. That's how government works. The president is just a magician. Everything is just, you know, yeah, the executive branch and the legislative branch, judiciary branch. Now that's bullcrap. That's the president. He has the magic powers, yeah. I wonder if he was a veteran. Maybe he'll have like a big breakdown, like Rambo at the end of First Blood. Over there in the war, you know, we had a code of honor. I was in charge of $1 million equipment in Iraq, but now I can't hold the job on a forklift in Florida. I was going up there and hand in the goo, Mr. Eric July. All you sycophants, blow me. Yeah. Yeah, Serbasan, I saw that, yeah, Jay, he's got a comic too, and well, considering how much money he's got from his Geeks and Gamers Association alone, that's another one of those where I'm thinking, well, why are you needing money to go and do this comic? Especially when you're a part of the whole Geeks and Gamers circle that has nothing but effusive praise for Eric July, who, you know, he's this big time YouTuber like all you guys, and he put up his own money to start this publisher and hire, artists and hire people to help him ship things and hire the printer and all that. So why are you going out there and, with your hand open? I always see that, like, I remember vividly when people were excoriating Zach Braff over him going to Kickstarter for some indie film he wanted to make, and all the studios turned down a script. And people from like just people on Twitter to even established YouTube channels like the Screen Junkies show were rightfully excoriating him, saying that Kickstarter and those crowdfunding platforms are for people who have creative aspirations but don't have the money to produce these projects themselves. You're taking away the money that could potentially go to that. Yeah, like me at a guy who's grateful to be at 2.5K subs and is trying to fight and scratch to get to 10K subs, because I after going all this and having this goal, I actually started looking up articles online about what is the percentile of people who have this amount of 1,000 subs, or I tried to specifically find what's the percentage of those who have 2K subs, and instead all the articles I did find that gave you any kind of numbers or percentiles were specifically it was like 1,000. Here's the percentage of channels with 1,000 subs, and then here's the percentage of 10,000 and 50,000, 100,000, up to 1 million, all that. And one article I found said that only 90% of YouTube channels that produce content never make it to 10,000 subs. That's that's a little thing. That's an interesting little statistic to see. So now there's another personal little goal or aspiration to go and subvert. Or there's like that. I don't see that as like as a blockade. I see that as a challenge. That's the call to arms. That's the call to battle of. All right, well, only 90% don't make it to 10,000 or more. Well, then, all right, count me in the 10%. Now, that's why I have the 10,000K subscriber goal I am now going after. So it's what I started. I've been doing it longer than now having my $20 a day channel revenue goal. Although, as my father says right here, there's the bitches bitch, others do. So no wonder those type of guys like Dick Masterson or Vito or Vosh, who just want to yell into their webcam all day long, or the Drunken Peasants, how they are, and no wonder they're so insanely jealous of Eric July. It probably started when they saw that he's black, so they probably already, with all how progressive they are and how woke they are, they probably also took one good look at him being black and thought, oh, he's got a 300-foot dick. And we're already insanely jealous. But then the fact that he's a black dude that doesn't agree with their politics and is massively successful in spite of them, that just brought the rage aneurysm into the fucking stratosphere. That little bit right there. That's that's the lead, the old phrase from Lee Iacocca, the famous auto executive of lead, follow, get out of the way. Well, yeah, that's so. Eric July definitely is not one of those follow types, as you see. Oh, the irony with a guy that has almost 500,000 subscribers to YouTube, but that's just one major platform he has. But I mean, okay, no, that's not going to work. But I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, but yeah, here's the other one about winners finding the way to win. There is that. I mean, already with me not having the correct politics, not having some established success in some other business or industry, and also not having any kind of like corporate sponsorship or whatever or backing behind me at all. Already trying to have a prosperous YouTube channel like that is like trying to run a marathon, but you borrow someone's gun and shoot yourself in the kneecaps and still think you're going to go and win the marathon. That's basically that. There's an analogy right there. Although it's still bad that I could literally shoot out my kneecaps and still be able to beat Vito and the Drunken Peasants and Dick Masterson and Vosh all in a marathon. Although I probably would take a digression where I would then lure them into their homes and lure them to collect their hard drives and then lure them all to the nearest police station to turn themselves in. And maybe just like run in place while watching them and watch them in the cell long enough to see what their prison bitch names will be. Yes, Syrup is on Hail to the Iron Age right there. That's why I've got three comics, like three full done comics that I have. One finished, one partially done, and another that's still mostly in my head, but getting those actually finished and really having the kind of prosperous channel where I would have the regular monthly channel revenue income, that would be the kind of thing where it really would be, all right, the channel would really be earning me a living like that, plus what I'd be doing with my art and my store and all that. once I get to that threshold, then there would be the thing of, well, then, all right, being able to just have my head above water with my art store and my channel, then would be the idea of going into the pool of then going to Indiegogo to get the project done. Because it'd be a situation where, yeah, I still would not be at the big money-making level of Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic. So yes, there would be a matter of, well, I need the crowdfunding revenue because, yeah, I'm only just now being able to get enough revenue to support myself with a combination of online merchandising and my online persona, my online presence. So yeah, putting all my own money behind that means then, well, okay, I'd still just be shit out of luck. And okay, well, what's how our living expenses going to be taken care of? And that's the goal, just to get that level. That would then, it would, to me, justify going to the crowdfunding campaign, because then you wind up seeing that glaring thing with Comicsgate that Eric July didn't say, he didn't mention Comicsgate by name, but in the multiple videos about how to make money in comics, he mentioned the people who then do these comic campaigns that do become successful crowdfunders, but this is more money than they've ever seen in their life. So they start spending all this money on vacations, they spend it on houses, they spend it on all this expensive like collectibles that they've always wanted and everything but the comics are supposed to be making. So then they wind up going through the money, not making the comics. So then they wind up doing a secondary campaign to subsidize the first one. And now they learn their lesson, a life lesson about how to spend their money. So now they're going to go and use the money all over to actually go and make that comic, or at least that's what they should do. You know, although, yeah, there's the red flag right there with the second campaign for John Malin's Godlike, or what was it now, like the third campaign for the one Cyberfrog comic, I think the second Cyberfrog comic that Van Sciver was doing. Yeah, that's a little shifty. Although you notice that when it comes to the still violently anti-Comicsgate people, they never go after that. It's always still, oh, they're all evil alt-right now, so, oh, look at how dare they make fun of John Kent as Superman or Tim Drake and all that crap, instead of going after the actually shady financial lack of discipline. But we should expect a lack of self-respect from these guys, because out of the major group, well, most of them are so repulsively obese that they should never be on camera. I mean, Cecil had the good sense to wear a mask, like a mask, and build up a whole alter ego. And that's why it's funny that the fattest and grossest one of them all is the first one to not just not be fat, but actually put on muscle. And yes, Sir Ubi-san, where's Rainbow the Brute? It's been more than 2 years. Either finish the damn comic and send it to my door, or I'm going to be demanding a refund. Well, I actually months ago already went and privately messaged via Indiegogo, Ethan Van Sciver, the refund for the $35 I spent on a comic 2 years ago that still isn't being done, because he's distracted by 8-hour ego massaging self-indulgent live streams where he's eating pie and playing obnoxious 50-minute long channel intros and outros while smirking to the camera, or then dropping everything so that 20 minutes he can play some clip from a kid show saying this is serious. And maybe Doug TenNapel was on the right track when describing Comicsgate and Ethan Van Sciver. Just maybe. Oh, yes. Less fat means you're less fat, not fit. Just look at Shane Davis, who was pudgy for a long time. Now he lost weight, but in all those obnoxious, unfunny comedy sketch bits he does on his streams that are also making him just as guilty of being lazy and distracted and not finishing his comic projects on time as Malin or Van Sciver. Yeah, you see him and there he is shirtless, and no, it's just a really fat guy who lost a bunch of weight, so that means you've got all this gross, distended skin all across his body now. He looks like fat bastard after the Subway diet now. Although Cecil, on the other hand, lost all the fat and now is actually legitimately put on muscle, at least in his arms. But, I mean, there's still that. Hello to Nick. We've got Nick in the chat. He's saying, still on? Well, yep, we're just a bit on right here, right now. Right now, this is the last call for super chats and channel memberships and donations into the store to get the $20 a day channel revenue goal. There we go with the store. And also, don't forget about the Amazon wish list right there. Let's get that in. All right, now I got a little screwed around. There we are, buddy. Now we got it in. There we are. All right. Oh, yes. And, well, since Nick is here, let's all show him the Juggernaut right here. Ooh, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. I'm down to fuck. I'm ready to fuck. Well,
I think there's been some Marvel porno parodies that did feature the Juggernaut. I know there was like an Axel Braun parody of the X-Men, and there might have been Juggernaut in there. Hey, fellas, I'm ready to fudge. Well, I'm the Juggernaut, and I'm ready to fuck. Oh, fudge me now, fudge me. Oh, baby, you got me so hot. Oh, baby, oh, fudge me, baby, fudge me. Oh, yeah. Oh, you will never stop me. Ass fuck twins. Woohoo, ass fuck twins. Yeah. I am Sancho. What are you? I am Sancho. Chuck Norris is not Sancho. Scott Baio is not Sancho, but I am Sancho. And yes, the Orgasmo poster will return back to its place after the first few weeks of January. Because remember, Michigan's going to be New Year's Day in the Rose Bowl. Hopefully after that, they'll be in the college football championship game. So yeah, that'll be up until like early January. Like around the time that people give up on their New Year's resolution to lose weight will be the time that I'll be switching that picture down with the Orgasmo poster. And with that, that's my little warning to all of you as we're big on end. And for that, I want to thank you all for watching. Remember to subscribe so my channel reaches 10K subs. Don't forget to become a channel member today with the link below to help out with the channel and help it grow and get my $20 a day revenue. And do not forget that also you can shop my art store where I have posters for 200, color art for 30, pen ink art for 25, sketchbooks for 25, trading cards for 10. Color commissions are 60, pen ink commissions are 50, and trading card commissions are only 20. You can also go and donate my store. Donations are the first thing you see there. Any denomination is accepted from around the world. And also, even the minimum donation is appreciated because those donations in the store go directly to me. And if you want to shop in buy my art or commission me from outside of America, just make your payment as a donation by adding up what you want in US dollars with another 25 US included for the international shipping and handling fee. And your items will ship immediately. So remember, I'll be live tomorrow. My shorts premiere at 5 p.m. Eastern, 5:30. I'll have a new video premiere at 6:30, and I'll be live again at 10. So remember, felines, slam it, lick it, suck it, and see you, Space Cowboy.